it was supposed to be her comeback moment. After missing the tail end of her rookie season due to injury, Caitlin Clark arrived at Team USA's training camp with something to prove. But her first day back ended with another injury scare, throwing her Olympic ambitions into doubt once again. For an athlete who never missed time in high school or college, these back-to-back setbacks are uncharted territory, and they've added urgency to questions about her physical limits. Clark is facing not just the pressure of healing, but the burden of expectations that have followed her since she turned pro. Yet, even with her body tested, Clark's influence is unmistakable. Inside the camp, coaches like Cheryl Reeve and Cara see her as a critical piece of the post-veteran transition.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
A face of the next Olympic cycle. Beyond the court, Clark's ability to navigate competing league interests, massive sponsorship deals, and emerging global markets shows her career is as strategic as it is athletic. She's leveraging her name in ways that redefine what it means to be a women's basketball star, and her resilience, physical and mental, has become the most important skill she brings to the game. Whether or not she plays in the Olympics, her presence is already reshaping the future of international women's basketball. 2. Caitlin Clark got injured again. And this time, it happened on day one of Team USA training camp. A moment that was supposed to mark her full-circle comeback from the ankle injury that shut down her 2024 WNBA season has now thrown her right back into recovery mode. After dominating at every level, high school, college, and an explosive start to her pro career, Clark's latest setback is more than just another headline. It's a moment that underscores what she's been carrying, how she's handled it, and what it means for the future of women's basketball. Her first injury in late 2024 wasn't just a sprained ankle. It ended her season. It knocked her out of the Olympic picture. It stopped the Clark momentum machine cold, just as she was redefining what a rookie could do in the WNBA. And for a player who had never been sidelined before, it was a mental war as much as a physical one. Until that point, she had been untouchable. No missed games, no drop-offs, no weaknesses. But the injury forced her into a different kind of spotlight, the one where athletes are forced to face limitations for the first time. It was the kind of wake-up call that either breaks you down or builds you back. Clark chose the second route. She spent the months after that setback focusing on recovery. She didn't disappear, she recalibrated. Quietly, intentionally. She showed up to the recent USA basketball camp ready. Not just physically, but with a renewed focus. The message was clear. She wasn't just returning. She was ready to step into a leadership role. Because this camp wasn't just about drills. It was about a generational shift. It marked a new phase for USA basketball, one that's beginning to pivot away from the veterans who've defined the program for the past decade. Clark's presence there was symbolic. She wasn't just another invite. She was being positioned as a future cornerstone, someone who could lead the next Olympic cycle. And then, just like that, she went down. A second injury in less than a year instantly changed the tone. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was enough. Enough to remind everyone just how fragile this sport can be, even for someone who's been branded as indestructible. Clark's rookie year proved her talent. The ratings, the fan turnout, the Rookie of the Year nod, the media saturation, all of it validated that she was bigger than the hype. She had transformed from college superstar to a legitimate pro icon. And that kind of leap doesn't happen often. It happened because she produced, because she showed up, because she delivered over and over again. But none of that guarantees durability. And that's the crossroads she now faces. Her ankle injury last season already cost her a shot at the 2024 Olympic roster. That door may not have slammed shut, but it definitely shifted focus to a future timeline. One where Clark is expected to lead Team USA into 2028. That's what makes this injury at camp so frustrating for her, for the program, and for the fans. Because this camp was her reintroduction, her proof that she was back and ready to be part of the long-term plan. Instead, the conversation now shifts back to her body, her recovery, and whether she can hold up under the weight of everything she's being asked to carry. she's already carrying a league. The WNBA's rise over the last year hasn't just been about team expansion or league sponsorships. It's been directly tied to Clark. The $2.2 billion media rights deal didn't happen in a vacuum. Neither did the surging franchise valuations. Clark's arrival accelerated everything. She brought in new fans, new attention, new investment, and the pressure to keep delivering hasn't let up since. That same pressure extends to USA Basketball, which knows exactly what she represents. Clark isn't just another young player. She's the future face of the national team. Her ability to connect with audiences, drive viewership, and generate headlines is unparalleled in women's sports right now. That's why her attendance at this camp was about more than just competition. It was strategic. And this injury? It complicates all of it. But if there's one thing Clark has proven, it's that she knows how to navigate pressure. She's done it at every level. And now, she's applying that same mindset to her body. Because recovery the second time around is different. It's not just about getting back on the court. It's about pacing, about protecting your long-term value, about making the decisions that stretch a career, not just salvage a season. That's where she's shown incredible awareness. Her refusal to overcommit post-injury. Her strategic caution around joining rival leagues like unrivaled. She's not moving impulsively. She's leveraging every offer, every opportunity, and making it clear that she understands her market value better than anyone else. She's also watching a larger shift happening in women's basketball. The sport is undergoing a transformation. The financial growth is real. The commercial interest is spiking. International competition is heating up, and there's a clear generational turnover happening. The veterans are still here, but the spotlight is moving. And Clark is at the center of that movement. What makes her story different is that it's not just about domination. It's about progression. She's experienced the full cycle: success, rejection, injury, and now the hard work of reinvention. That cycle is what gives her staying power. Not just the highlights, but the humility, the willingness to adapt. Her role with USA Basketball will come. If not now, then soon. She's already laid the foundation. Her chemistry with other young stars like Cameron Brink is a preview of what the next decade could look like. And her relationships with coaches like Cheryl Reeve and Kara Lawson point to how seriously she's being taken behind the scenes. This injury might pause the narrative, but it won't derail it, because what Clark brings to the table is more than a jump shot. It's discipline. It's self-awareness. It's leadership, developed through the kinds of trials that no highlight reel can prepare you for. In a sport that often burns through talent too quickly, Clark is actively building something sustainable. And that's why this moment matters. Not because it's a setback, but because of how she's going to respond to it. She's already shown she can return from a major injury and reestablish herself. She's already proven she can deal with national rejection and still position herself as the future of Team USA. And now she has a chance to show how you navigate another curveball without letting it define you. So while the headlines are fixated on the injury, the real story is the transformation still in progress. This isn't the end of the chapter. It's the part where things get serious. Drop your take in the comments. Should Clark pull back from Team USA commitments for now? How should she manage recovery going into her second WNBA season? And what does this say about how women's sports treat their biggest stars? Like this video if you've been tracking every update. Share it with someone who's still catching up. And subscribe for more on the athletes, the pressure, and the future of the game. Because Caitlin Clark's story, it's still being written. Caitlin Clark didn't just show up at Team USA camp with a fresh pair of sneakers and a smile. She showed up with purpose, with a mission. After the ankle injury that ended her 2024 WNBA season, her entire focus had shifted. She wasn't there just to compete. She was there to prove that the future of American basketball wasn't something to speculate about. It was her, but the body had other plans. Day one. One day. That's all she got before her name hit the injury list again. It didn't take long for whispers to turn into questions. Is this bad luck or something more serious? Is she pushing too hard, too soon? And the bigger question that no one wants to say out loud: can she hold up under the pressure of being the face of the sport? 2. The answer, at least for now, is complicated. Because Clark's presence isn't just symbolic anymore, it's structural. She is the WNBA's momentum. She's the through line connecting the exploding popularity of women's college hoops to the now burgeoning world of women's professional basketball. Her name isn't just on jerseys. It's in boardrooms, on broadcast deals, in expansion meetings, and on Olympic planning documents. And that's where the stakes really live. When she got injured in late 2024, the conversation wasn't just about the Fever losing their star rookie. It was about the league losing its most magnetic force, right when everything was gaining speed. That moment exposed just how fragile the system still is. For all the progress, the billion-dollar deals, the sellout games, so much still rests on the availability of a few top-tier. Caitlin Clark is one of those names. So when she reappeared at Team USA camp, it felt like the signal everyone had been waiting for. The return, the resurgence, the next phase. Her being there meant she was healthy again, ready to claim her spot, not just on a team, but in a legacy. And then the injury. It wasn't a collapse. There was no dramatic stretcher moment. But it was enough. Enough to shift the tone. Enough to slow the excitement. Enough to start the cycle of cautious updates and vague rehab timelines all over again. For someone whose entire identity has been built on consistency, availability, and dominance, 2 injuries in under a year is not a stat you want on your resume. But here's what separates Clark from a lot of young stars. She doesn't pretend. When she first went down in 2024, she was honest. About the pain, sure, but more importantly, about the mental toll. She talked about the months she spent off the court, not just missing the game, but questioning herself. What her body could handle, how she was perceived, whether she was being set up for long-term success or burned out before her second season. That honesty matters now more than ever, because she's not the only one navigating this new world. Women's basketball is in a full-blown growth spurt, and Clark is standing at the center of it like a lighthouse. And when she stumbles, the ripple effects are massive. Not because the sport can't survive without her, but because the machine around her isn't built to slow down. The WNBA just locked in that $2.2 billion media rights deal. Expansion cities are lined up. Merchandise is flying off the shelves. Corporate sponsors are more active than ever. And every one of those moves has Clark's face, directly or indirectly, attached to it. So the real question now isn't, what's wrong with Caitlin Clark? It's, how do we treat athletes when their bodies can't keep up with the pace we demand from them? That's what this injury represents. A moment to reassess. Clark knows it. That's why her approach has changed. She's not rushing to overcommit. She's keeping her options open. She's staying in conversations with Unrivaled, the new player-backed league that's quietly preparing to disrupt the system with shorter seasons, higher pay, and more control for athletes. Not because she wants out of the WNBA, but because she's smart enough to know that leverage only matters when you're willing to use it. And it's not just about money. It's about longevity, about not burning out under the weight of expectations that never turn off. Because Caitlin Clark didn't ask to be the marketing engine for a sport mid-revolution. She earned that position by doing the work, by delivering night after night, by showing up game after game. But now, with this second injury hanging in the air, she's being forced to confront the uncomfortable reality of what happens when your body starts saying slow down before the world is ready to listen. The pressure to be everything, to the league, to Team USA, to fans, to media partners, is relentless. And this moment, it's a reminder that no matter how much potential she has, Clark is still human. And even the most promising careers can be derailed if the system doesn't adapt. Which is why this might actually be the most important chapter of her story so far. It's easy to admire a star when they're ascending, when everything's going right, when the stats are breaking records and the stands are full. But how they respond when things get messy, that's where real legacy is built. And Clark isn't panicking. She's recalibrating. Her relationships at the Team USA camp reflect that growth. Players like Cameron Brink, who've known her since youth nationals, now form part of a rising core that represents what the next decade of American basketball could look like. And the coaches Cheryl Reeve, Kara Lawson, They're not just evaluating talent. They're shaping culture. They know Clark's leadership is worth investing in, even if she's temporarily sidelined. That's why this injury won't shake her long-term position. If anything, it gives her more room to mature on her terms, to take the time she needs without feeling like she's falling behind. Because she's not behind. She's still ahead of where most players would be 2 years into their careers. She's already changed the sport. Now she gets to decide how to sustain that change. And make no mistake, Team USA still sees her as a pillar. This injury might push back the timeline a bit, but it doesn't shift the plan. The 2028 Olympics are still a heartbeat away, and Clark is still the name at the top of the depth chart for that next-gen roster. What happens this year is just one step in a longer arc. So where does this leave us? With a 23-year-old superstar who's already done more for the game than most do in a decade, who's been injured twice in under a year and is still expected to lead a movement, who's juggling national team expectations, franchise pressure, endorsement deals, and league politics, all while rehabbing her second lower body injury in 12 months. And she's handling it, because Caitlin Clark didn't become the face of women's basketball by being the loudest. She did it by showing up with discipline, with resilience, and with the kind of mental clarity that makes you think she's playing chess while everyone else is still picking teams. This latest injury is just another test. Not a derailment, not a downfall, just another opportunity to reset, refocus, and reshape her story on her own timeline. Caitlin Clark's story isn't going anywhere. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. This latest injury might have paused the momentum, but it hasn't erased it. In fact, it's added another layer to a career that's becoming less about hype and more about durability, identity, and long-term impact. The question is no longer, is she good enough? That question got answered a long time ago. The real conversation now is, how does she keep doing this when every institution around her expects her to never miss a beat? And that question is loud. She's the player people paid to see, literally. Attendance spiked the moment she entered the WNBA. National broadcasts were rescheduled just to fit her into prime time. Analysts talked about her on sports networks that rarely mention women's basketball. She became but movements need time, growth, recovery, space to evolve. That's what makes this moment so crucial. Not just for Clark, but for how the sport handles its stars from this point forward. Because here's the truth. Clark is the test case for a sport trying to scale up without burning out its biggest names. And that's a razor-thin line. The WNBA is expanding fast. New teams, new markets, new money. The league has never had this kind of financial momentum. Billion-dollar deals are finally on the table. Investors see the value. Sponsors see the audience. But there's a very real danger in mistaking visibility for invincibility. Caitlin Clark isn't a machine. She's a player who's been asked to carry an entire era of basketball on her back before her second season has even started. That kind of load breaks people. But so far, she's refusing to let it break her. Even with this injury at Team USA camp, she's still operating with intention. She's been smart about her choices. She knows the cameras are always rolling, the headlines are waiting, and the narrative is constantly shifting. And yet she stayed focused, methodical, even in how she repositions herself every time the game throws something unexpected her way. Like when she missed the Olympics in 2024. A gut punch for sure, but she didn't pout. She recalibrated. She knew she wasn't being overlooked forever. That door didn't close, it just opened on a different schedule. And when she showed up to the next Team USA camp, she wasn't just there to participate. She was there to lead. That's what this new generation of women's basketball looks like. It's not just about talent. It's about staying power, about navigating the demands of multiple leagues, media obligations, national team responsibilities, and business negotiations, all while staying healthy enough to play the actual game. And the thing is, Clark has become very aware of her influence. Her interest in rival leagues like Unrivaled isn't about drama. It's about leverage. It's about having a seat at the table, about being part of the conversation, shaping the next version of women's sports, not just reacting to it. She's no longer just a player in the system. She's part of what defines the system. 2. and every step she takes now matters more than ever. Because other players are watching. Fans are watching. Brands are watching. Everyone wants to know how she'll respond. Not just to the injury, but to the pressure, the politics, the nonstop noise. What they'll see is someone who's not chasing every opportunity, but curating her path, choosing when to speak, choosing when to rest, choosing to show strength through patience instead of overexposure. Because one more bad step, one more rushed return, and it's not just the season at risk, it's the career. That's why this injury has to be taken seriously. Not blown out of proportion, but not brushed aside either. It's the second warning in under a year. And it's happening at a time when Clark has more influence, more expectations, and more weight on her than ever before. So maybe this is the moment when everyone needs to stop and recalibrate. Not just Clark, the WNBA, Team USA, the fans, the business side, the sport. Because if they want longevity out of their stars, they have to build for it. That means rest. That means flexibility. That means not expecting one player to carry the load of an entire movement without breaks. Caitlin Clark has already shown she can lead. Now she has a chance to lead differently, not just through performance, but through boundaries, through protecting her body, through showing younger players that it's okay to pause when you need to, even when the world is demanding you do more. She's not falling off. She's getting smarter, stronger. And if the league is paying attention, this could be the shift that makes everything more sustainable, not just for Clark, but for everyone coming after her. Because success isn't just about rising fast. It's about staying in the game. Drop your thoughts in the comments. How should Caitlin manage this next recovery? Is this a sign the league needs to adjust its expectations for young stars? And what would you do if you were in her shoes, balancing health, brand, and legacy? Like the video if you're following this journey every step of the way. Share it with someone who thinks injuries only affect the game, not the whole industry. And make sure you're subscribed, because the next chapter in this story isn't about what Caitlin Clark does next. It's about how the world reacts when she decides to do it on her own terms.